Hey, Julia Barzyk here from Wise Investigator. So today I'm going to talk about collaborations with government scientists and engineers. And this is a very important topic, yet there's not really good information out there for PIs to learn anything about it. That's what I found. And so I've tried to put some things out there and in my newsletter, and I'm going to elaborate on some of that here. So this is going to be in three parts. First, today I'm going to talk to you about who these people are. We're talking about these government scientists and engineers. Who are they? What are their motivations? What's driving them? And we'll follow that up with a video on the benefits of collaborating with government scientists and engineers. And then lastly, the third piece on how you can actually go about doing this. So let's get started here. Okay, so who are these people? These are scientists and engineers, and I'm speaking about research scientists and engineers. Plenty of people have training in science and engineering, and they are no longer doing research. Like, for example, myself, right? I have that training, but I no longer perform research myself. So there's many scientists and engineers in the government who are maybe in more management type roles. But what I'm talking about here are the people who are actually performing research. Now, of course, research can be one can do research and not publish in the literature. They could do research for other purposes, publish in internal reports, use that to inform decisions, etc. So I'm speaking broadly about people who perform research. So just think a little bit more broadly than what you think of as an academic. An academic performs research, but it's within a narrow environment. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay. So these people can be a Department of Energy, like national labs. They could be at USDA. It could be at NIST, at DOD. And they could be performing research that's basic research, and which is most likely what you do, although you may do some applied research, or they could be doing much more applied research. So what I'm also going to be focusing on here are people who are doing that more basic or maybe a little bit applied research, because that research is generally not sensitive. It's more likely that it's going to be published in literature, or it's conducted and disseminated within like an open type environment. It's not classified research or sensitive research or anything like that. And let's just think a bit about these people in terms of what's driving them. What are their careers like, and what are they engaging in day to day? Okay, so there's a lot of variation here. I think a more variation in how their careers evolve, what they do day to day. There's more variation among this group than there is in your group of peers, faculty peers, although there's definitely differences there, right? If you have a low teaching load versus a high teaching load, then how a faculty member's day unfolds and week unfolds is going to have variability. But even so, with these government scientists and engineers, there is a lot of variability in their workday, in their work week, and in their priorities and their motivations. So that's why we need to break this down a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about publishing. Now, some of these people will care a lot about publishing, almost maybe as much as you do, and they're going to be looking to publish in top journals, and they may have requirements to publish as part of their job, and or they may be motivated to publish because of personal reasons, that they feel that's important to them, or they could be looking to maybe move on to a new job. Maybe they want to go into academia, or they want to be hired somewhere else, and they feel that a strong record of publication is going to help them get to that place. Others could not be motivated to publish in the peer-reviewed literature. They may not have that as a requirement for their job performance or promotion. They may not be looking to leave the government and looking for another job, so that might not really matter to them. And they may not enjoy writing papers, and it's just something that's not important to them. Of course, there's going to be many people along that spectrum, right? Those were kind of the two end members there. And just because they're not interested in publishing very much doesn't mean that they're not doing research. They can be reporting their results in internal reports and other formats, right? So they're still could be engaged in research. Now, related to this is the collaboration with outsiders. How much are these people motivated to collaborate with outsiders? That can vary greatly. In some cases, they could be expected to collaborate with people outside the organization, either in other government agencies, in academia, maybe internationally. And this can vary greatly, of course. So some of them also may enjoy collaborating with others, and that's something that brings them a lot of satisfaction and excitement. And others maybe are not so interested in those collaborations. Now, if they're not interested in outside collaborations, then you could probably follows from that is, oh, maybe that's not the person who is going to be my collaborator, right? If they're not interested in those collaborations. But this is providing the context here, because you could talk to one person who's super motivated for a collaboration, talk to another person, and they don't really seem to care or have interest. And you're wondering, oh, well, why is the difference? Well, it's because it can vary greatly. So further, just one more thing about that is that the collaboration could be beneficial in some cases to these people's promotion and career, because this collaboration with outsiders could provide a validation to their superiors, right? That says, oh, okay, we know that Dr. So-and-so is in the lab here doing this work, looks interesting to us and everything. But then we find out, oh, the state university down the road has faculty who are really interested in that and have begun a collaboration. And okay, you guys are big shots, right? University professors, when you demonstrated interest or even collaboration in work that somebody else is doing at one of these labs, then that's really a compliment. That looks very positively on the work of that government scientist or engineer. So you're bringing a little bit of your shine right over to those folks. So this could be very good for them and help convince their leadership that, yeah, the work I'm doing is important. Look at who wants to join us and be part of this, because it matters and we're on the cutting edge, right? So you can provide that value. The collaborations can provide that value. Now, the time that these folks have available is something that varies greatly too. So any one of these people is going to have a whole number of job responsibilities, just like everybody else. They're, very busy with many things they need to do. If they're engaged in research, then that's going to be most likely something that they really enjoy and they want to spend time on, probably as much as possible. But they also have administrative responsibilities. They have perhaps, if they're a supervisor, they have people that report to them. They have to coach and mentor those people. And just, again, many internal requirements that they have to fulfill and, travel, all that stuff. So they may be spending a lot of their time on research, or they may be spending very little. So this is something to just keep in mind, because there's not an answer, a one size fits all answer to say, oh, this person is spending, 2 days a week on research, or they're spending half their time on research, or 25% of their time on research. You just don't know. And you're not going to know that until you talk to somebody and you kind of feel that out. Another way that these folks vary is in their access to extramural funding. So sometimes these folks are working in organizations where there is money within the organization that is designated to support grants or contracts to outsiders. And that could be industry folks, it could be academia, nonprofits. So this is something that you should also not go into conversations or relationships with any preconceived notions, because some of them could directly have control over funds that, and even substantial amounts of money that go to, say, outsiders, extramural funding, or they could have really no access to almost no funds at all, no funds. And they may be in a pretty tight situation where, not to go too far into the weeds, but they could be actually what's called customer funded, where they are looking to other federal agencies, usually, to provide them with work, and they perform that work as for the customer, which is another part of the government. And many times their own salaries can be covered. They can need to cover their own salary with this customer funding. So this is something you don't really need to worry about too much, except to say that this is another spectrum where you've got people who are pretty strapped for money, even trying to cover their own salary. And you could have people that have access to a lot of funds and they are not in that customer funded situation. Not only that, but they have money available to them for extramural funding. So last one I'm going to talk about here is the interest that these folks have in mentoring, because a lot of collaborations that come out of academia and the government, they can often involve some kind of internship with a student or a trainee, postdoc, etc., or someone could be hired perhaps from after they get their degree and do that postdoc at the government lab, or again, a postdoc could spend a summer at the government lab or whatever, or students. So how much the government scientists and engineers are going to want to engage in this and the vehicles they have access to allow this to happen is going to vary greatly. At many government labs, there are internship type programs where there are funds available. There's a certain number of interns that are going to come every summer or every semester, maybe if they're local, or they could do it remotely or something like that. And they will have these potential collaborators of yours will be able to say, oh, we're going to request a student for the XYZ laboratory research internship for this upcoming year. And then you could get one of your trainees into those positions. Others may not have an official program that they can use so easily, but they may have other ways of making an internship type thing happen. And they may be very interested in bringing on students, mentoring students, being part of a student's dissertation committee. Perhaps that can be something they may want to participate in. Or they may not be interested in mentoring students. They may be interested in collaborating with you, but for whatever reason, the mentorship of your trainees, is just not something that is a great motivator for them, right? So this hopefully gives you an idea of the wide variety of situations that these people can find themselves in. And that's important to understand, because when you enter into the conversations with them, you don't want to be making assumptions. And you not only do not want to make assumptions because you can just start going down the wrong path that way, but you also don't want to feel like you should know this. Sometimes when we don't know information and we think we should know that, we enter in a conversation and think, oh, I don't necessarily want to let on that I have no idea like what this person's job is or what they even do. And so my point here is that no one would expect you to know that. It's perfectly reasonable to, once you start having a conversation, and we'll get to that in another video, but it's perfectly reasonable to, politely ask some of these questions, like, how much time do you spend on research? How much, bandwidth do you have for this thing? Do you take students and internships or not? Maybe not asking things like, do you have access to funds, right away the first time you meet them when you're trying to build a technical relationship. But these are all things that can vary. So it's perfectly reasonable for you to not know these things and to make a point to learn them, gradually over time and feel out a situation. Also, if you have had a successful collaboration with one group or an individual from one of these labs, and then you're exploring another one, don't make assumptions that the way things worked collaborating with these other folks it is very similar to how things might work with another group. For example, when I was with the Army Research Office, sometimes I would interact with PIs who had collaborations, relationships with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is a different organization than Army Research Office. So sometimes they would come in to the conversations and even a relationship expecting that things were going to work similarly when they were dealing with Army Research Office to how they worked with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So in that case, I would really kind of say, hey, okay, forget everything. Not technically, the technical collaborations were important, and the knowledge they had from those Corps of Engineers interactions and collaborations, that was important. But I would say more like forget everything administratively that you learned from working with them, like, how you submitted the proposal or what the proposal was supposed to look like, what kind of funding vehicle was employed, all that kind of stuff. We just say, okay, forget all that kind of stuff. And this is the process at the organization that you're talking to right now. So don't make assumptions that because you worked with one group and it worked one way, that it will necessarily work that way elsewhere. So next video, we are going to get into the benefits. So why might you want to pursue these relationships and these collaborations?